Hey guys, welcome back to the Playlist Push YouTube channel. Today we're talking about how you can be an amazing Spotify playlist curator, what it takes to build an amazing list, retain fans on the playlist, and some very interesting, easy ways to grow your list. So let's get right into it, and let's start with number one. First of all, the world doesn't need more playlists that are titled Top Hits 2021. That's really not interesting at all for anyone. It's not interesting for listeners, and it's definitely not interesting for artists to get on those playlists. So what you want to do is you want to find a niche that you know well. So, if you're really into country music, then you're probably very tapped into that niche. You know some really cool artists. You should probably create country music playlists. On the other hand, I'm into more dance music, so that's kind of my sphere. I have a Burning Man playlist and a couple other dance playlists. And I know that niche well, and I know where I can find good music for those playlists. So that is super important, that you need to find a niche that's interesting and that's interesting to artists that, will want to be on that list. That's the whole point, right? And I'll also say, just for us, Playlist Push speaking, a lot of those generic playlists, those aren't interesting. So unless the playlist is really strong and has a lot of listeners, you're probably not going to get into the network. We're looking for more interesting niche playlists that don't have to be huge but have a higher level of engagement and more monthly listeners. Next is keywords in your bio. So when you create the playlist, you're gonna have a playlist description that kind of explains what the playlist is about. Now you might think this is a step that you can skip because it's not important and it's just a playlist and people are gonna listen to it and people don't wanna read that. Well, that's not true, because that description and the keywords in there is how your playlist is going to show up in search on Spotify. So it's important to have keywords for music festivals that the music's relevant to, artists, labels, all of those things. Throw those things in there because your playlist will start coming up when people are actually searching for your list on Spotify. Next is you want to grab users' attention with beautiful cover art. So each playlist you can add cover art. If you don't, it usually just shows the album artwork for the top 4 songs, which isn't very interesting if you're browsing around Spotify. There's a lot of tools out there. You can use Unsplash, which is basically copyright-free photos, and then you can edit that in Photoshop or other photo editors and put the name of the playlist on there, so it kind of grabs the user's attention a little bit more. So don't skip that step. Make sure you have some really cool cover art for your playlist. Next is you want to take listeners on a journey. So you want to have a variety of music, but you don't want to go crazy and have a Death Grips song and then a Beyonce song that goes right after it. And I should have prefaced this about this whole video because TJ Jones wrote this entire article. I'm just prefacing it. He's got 74,000 followers on Spotify. He's one of the biggest curators on Spotify. So this is his article. I'm just running you guys through it and giving you little anecdotes from what I've learned from being at Playlist Push. But this is from TJ Jones, so I should just mention that. TJ, let's edit that in there at some point. Yeah, so, okay, moving on. You want to have a variety of ways to grow your playlist. So you want to be using subreddits, Facebook groups. So what do I mean by Facebook groups? So I have a Burning Man playlist. So I might want to find the Burning Man Facebook group and drop my playlist in there. It's likely that people are going to see that list and say, oh, cool, I'm going to follow this. And the cool thing about playlists is, it's not an ad, it's not anything nefarious, it's just a playlist, something you created that you're sharing with people. And if you tap into the right network, a lot of people are going to follow along. So it's important to have different ways to grow your list and have different people coming to it, because the most important thing about playlists is actually the monthly listeners. Okay, so another interesting tactic is to use indie artists to help you promote your list. So once you've created your playlist, you have some followers, you've got a little bit of clout, you can actually find artists that you're interested in that aren't massive and say, hey, I want to put your song in my playlist. Would you mind just featuring it in your artist pick section for a while? That's another way you can pick up more followers from your playlist being featured on that artist profile. So, and it's a win-win, really. You get followers, you get your playlist out there, and the artist gets streams from your playlist. So everybody wins, and that's a great thing to do as well. Also, it's good to know once you start getting those followers up, you can actually measure your playlist performance by other artists discovered on sections. So if you have an artist who doesn't have 1 million monthly listeners and your playlist is throwing off streams, you can actually see your playlist come up on their discovered section. And that's kind of a signal for you as a curator to know there's actually people out there listening to your playlists. Now, when it comes to the size of your playlist and editing your playlist, We recommend anywhere from 60 to 100 tracks. That's enough to keep people on a journey, but keep them entertained, and they can kind of continuously listen to that playlist and not get bored of it. It's also important to avoid major overhauls of your playlist. So you never really want to strip away every single song and start brand new one day, like a complete update. Because a lot of users, they come back to your playlist because they like certain songs and they like the flow of it. So, you know, sporadically move songs out and move songs in and just edit it to your personal taste, and I'm sure that's gonna go far with your listeners. It's also, this is the most important thing, and I think this is how I really grew my playlist, which started very small. You always wanna be listening to your playlist, and there's 3 reasons for this. Number 1 is your playlist followers can see your activity in your friends and discover your playlist. So if I follow someone on Spotify and they're listening to a playlist, that's gonna come up in the sidebar and I'm gonna say, ooh, what is that? I'll click on it, follow it, listen to it. Number 2 is search results are based on how many people are listening to that playlist, not how many followers there are. So if someone's searching for your playlist, it's gonna come up a lot higher than a lot of other lists if there's more people listening to it. You're just one more person listening to it, so it gives you a little bit of an edge. The last one is you want to always be listening to your list, because there's a good chance if you're constantly coming across a track that you just keep listening to or you're getting sick of, odds are your listeners are as well. So you might want to remove that song. Once you make it to the big leagues and you get your playlist to 1,000 followers, which is extremely hard to do, you can actually join Playlist Push, where we'll pay you to review and play songs in your playlist. Very seamless process. You get paid anywhere from $1.25 to $14 per song. It's very easy to sign up, and we pay you out almost instantly. So that's another option. We'll leave a link to apply below. If you already have a playlist that has 1,000 followers, you can check that out in the description. So guys, just to close things out, I think it's really important to this is something that can be extremely time consuming and very frustrating, and the growth of your playlist can be very slow. I think sometimes that's a good thing. That gives you time to pivot, that gives you time to make the playlist better as it evolves. Your playlist ultimately comes down to 2 things: how easily people can find your playlist, and then if it's good enough for them to share it with your friends. If you can nail those 2 things, your playlist is gonna continue to grow, you're gonna get more listeners, more people are gonna share it, and once you get to a certain amount of followers, there's just kind of this compounding effect where your playlist will just continue to grow. So that's where we wanna get, that's the goal. If you have any questions about growing your playlist or have a cool playlist you wanna share with us, feel free to drop it below, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for tuning in.